All right, let's dive into a massive challenge in AI governance. Why do the rules we write for our AI systems just seem to fall apart? We all want AI that's safe and effective, but actually writing rules that can stand up to the real world, well, that's a whole other story. It's an art, really. So let's get into it.
I mean, it's such a common problem, right? It's so frustrating. You spend weeks, maybe even months, crafting these perfect governance policies, and then, poof, they just fall apart. The rules you write are either so vague they're basically useless, or they're so incredibly specific that they're outdated the second a new tool comes out. And that right there? That's where so many AI governance plans just completely fall flat.
So, let's take a closer look at this trap. Because it's a dilemma that pretty much every single team trying to govern an AI system is going to run into. And it all boils down to one simple, unavoidable truth about the future.
Yeah, it's just impossible. You simply cannot write a rule for every single thing that might happen in the future. I mean, trying to predict every little edge case or every possible change in context, it's a losing battle from the start. The world moves on, technology evolves, and that rulebook you spent all that time on, it can become totally useless, like overnight. We've got to find a better way.
And this really gets to the heart of the conflict. On one side, you've got what we can call the joy rule. Something like, use AI responsibly. It sounds great, it feels good to say, but it's got no teeth. It's completely unenforceable. Then, on the other hand, you have the fear rule. This is where we get scared and try to lock everything down with super specific details. It makes us feel safe, sure, but it's so brittle it shatters the moment anything changes in the real world.
So, the big question is, how do we get out of this trap? Well, the solution is this really powerful idea called enforceable abstraction. It's all about finding that perfect balance between those two extremes to create rules that are actually durable and meaningful.
And here's the key idea behind it: enforceable abstraction. It's not just a fancy buzzword, it's a real architectural principle. It's all about expressing the why behind a rule, its core purpose, in a way that isn't tied down to the specific how you're doing it today. That separation is exactly what makes a rule tough enough to survive change.
I love this idea here. Abstraction is not simplification, it is compression with intent. We usually think of abstraction as just making things simpler. But that's not what this is. In AI governance, it's more like an act of compression. You're taking a big, complex goal and squeezing it down to its most essential, powerful core. It's deliberate, it's focused, and it's incredibly powerful. So the most important takeaway here is that a good abstraction creates this clean break between the why, the intent of the rule, and the how, the nitty-gritty details of how it's done. It preserves that core purpose while letting the actual implementation change and evolve over time. And that's exactly why a simple statement like, be fair, just doesn't cut it as a rule. It's a nice value, but it's not enforceable governance because it's all why and know how to check it.
Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, right? But how do we actually do it? How can you tell if the rule you just wrote is a genuinely enforceable abstraction or just wishful thinking? Well, turns out there's one incredibly simple but powerful test that every single good rule has to pass.
And here it is, the golden question. For any rule you write, you have to ask yourself, how would I verify this rule was followed? Think about it. If you can't answer that question with a clear, concrete action, then your rule isn't really a rule. It's just a nice idea. It's a wish, and it will absolutely crumble under real-world pressure because there's literally no way to prove anyone ever followed.
And this brings up a super important distinction that people mix up all the time: verification versus validation. Verification is all about asking, was the rule followed? Did we do the thing we said we were going to do? It's about the process. Validation, on the other hand, asks, did the outcome turn out well? Did we like the result? And when it comes to governance, our focus has to be on verification. It's about enforcing discipline in the process, not just crossing our fingers and hoping for a good result.
Now, let's be clear. This doesn't mean every single rule needs to be some 10-page legal document filled with jargon. Not at all. The level of detail, the strictness of your rule should be shaped by one thing: risk.
Good, resilient governance always keeps these two things separate. You have the abstraction, that's the why. Think of it as your North Star. It's constant. It doesn't change. Then you have the constraints. That's the how. These are the specific controls you put in place, and this is the part that needs to be flexible. It adapts depending on just how risky the situation is.
And that is the secret to making rules that are both strong and flexible. So if you're dealing with something high risk,
Yeah, your constraints are going to be way more specific, with clear, measurable controls. But because all of that is still anchored to that timeless why, that abstraction, your rule doesn't become this brittle thing that breaks the second your software gets an update.
Okay, theory time is over. Let's put this all together and make it super concrete with a real-world example. Let's imagine a company that's using an AI tool to help screen resumes for new jobs.
So, step one, you spot the problem. Your recruiters have started relying only on the AI-generated summaries. They're not even looking at the full resumes anymore. Okay, so what do? The first bad idea is that vague joy rule. The AI must be fair. Totally useless. The next bad idea is the super specific fear rule. The AI can only use criteria X, Y, and Z. That's just going to break later. The right answer is the enforceable abstraction. AI summaries can inform the review, but they must not be the sole basis for deciding who gets an interview. And the verification? So simple. You just check that a human review step is logged in the system before any interview decision is final. See? It's simple, it's clear, and it's built to last.
So here's the big aha moment. The really strong rule we just made, it has nothing to do with the AI's algorithm or the data it's trained on. It's about governing decision authority. It's about the human process. And because you're governing the people part of the process, the rule will survive any changes to the AI tool itself. It's basically future-proof. And let's wrap up with this really powerful idea. Getting that abstraction right at the beginning, it's everything. Because if your core abstraction is wrong, every single process you build on top of it will just be perfectly enforcing the wrong thing, over and over and over again. The stakes here are just incredibly high.
So I want to leave you with a challenge. As you go back to your work, think about this. Find one AI rule or policy in your world, just one, and ask yourself that golden question. How would I actually verify this was followed? Seriously, the answer to that question might be the key to unlocking governance that actually works. Thanks for tuning in.